Hey everybody, I'm Ryan. Today, we're going to talk about Draenor in World of Warcraft lore. Now, I'm obviously going to mention a bunch of different things. If you want to learn more about any of those things, those links will be in the description, as I do the videos that will be explaining those specific things. Draenor is called Rockshar, meaning the Sunstone by the Arakoa, and Dogar, meaning the known earth by the Ogres. Draenor, which is what we know this world as, was actually named by the Draenei. Draenor is a large, fertile world containing plains, forests, and swamps. Unlike Azeroth, Draenor didn't have a sleeping world soul, which led to drastically different primordial development. Draenor is different than Azeroth, whose sleeping world soul devoured the element of spirit and made the elements more chaotic. In Draenor, this large amount of spirit actually accelerated life and created a quite intense ecosystem. At the top of this primordial food chain was the carnivorous plant species, the Spore Mounds. As the Spore Mounds rooted deep into Draenor, they tapped into this fifth element, spirit. And spirit gave the Spore Mounds sentience, and they began acting as a single living organism in a sort of hive intelligence, becoming known as the Evergrowth, and they dominated the world. Aggramar, a titan, had come across Draenor while traveling the universe, and foresaw the doom of Draenor if the Evergrowth was left unchecked. He saw that the Evergrowth would consume everything in the world, including the elements, and then the Evergrowth would devour itself and leave Draenor a lifeless wasteland. Aggramar decided to intervene, but he didn't want to completely destroy Draenor's plant life. His goal was to neutralize the Spore Mounds, the soul of the power of the Evergrowth. Aggramar also didn't want to have to stand guard over the world forever, so he turned a mountain into a great servant, Grond. Grond challenged the Spore Mounds and defeated many of them very easily. The Evergrowth knew it needed to adapt in order to defeat Grond. Draining even more spirit from Draenor, 3 Spore Mounds adapted, uprooted, and marched to meet Grond. These Spore Mounds were Zang, Naanu, and Botaan. Grond crushed Zang and Naanu. Zang's corpse became the Zanger Sea, and Naanu's corpse became the Tannan Jungle. Botaan absorbed the life energies of Zang and Naanu to make themselves more powerful, and attacked Grond, pushing thousands of vines into Grond's cracks and fissures. And Grond crumbled, defeated. His corpse would form the mountain range, Nagrand, and the elemental energies that gave Grond life coalesced into pools, and the spirits of Draenor finally took physical form. The most powerful were the Furies, living near what remained of Grond's head, where would become known as the Throne of the Elements. During the battle between Grond and the Spore Mounds, pieces of both fell to Draenor, and new creatures were created from them. The most powerful of the Spore Mounds remnants were the Genesaur. The most powerful of Grond's remnants were the Colossals. Aggramar, who watched the battle, helped the Colossals defeat Botaan. He also made stone discs from the remnants of Grond, which he attached to the Colossals like armor, empowering them. As the Colossals marched to battle, Aggramar sensed the death of a Constellar and was compelled to seek the source of the signal. He would never return, as this journey would lead him to being killed by the Dark Titan Sargeras. The Colossals and the Evergrowth fought like before, and pieces that fell off would continue to give birth to new creatures, including the Magnaron. Magnaron were not as intelligent or loyal to Aggramar, but still fought with the Evergrowth and Genesaur as they migrated to areas with volcanic activity. The Colossals decided to launch a final suicidal attack on Botaan and release the energies of their Titan relics, creating an explosion and killing both parties. The Colossals' corpses sank to the earth, forming veins of Blackrock Ore, and Botaan's corpse would form the region of Farahlon, and the hive mind sentience of the Evergrowth was finally destroyed. Botaan's corpse released spores infused with the spirit of life, and these spores changed everything they touched. Surviving Colossals became creatures of flesh and blood. Magnaron became weaker, and some became the race known as Gronn. Some Gronn would further degenerate into the smaller but smarter Ogron, who worshipped the Gronn as gods. Some Ogron transformed into ogres, and some ogres further transformed into orcs. Ogres were enslaved by the Ogron, and the orcs hid underground. hiding from the power of their relatives. Magnaron, Gronn, and Ogron became collectively known as the Breakers, who took control of the barren and mountainous parts of the world. New races of plant creatures spawned from the plants that were touched by these spores, such as Podlings, Sporelings, and Botaan. Along with the Genesaur, these became collectively known as the Primals. The Botaan had faint memories of the Evergrowth, so much so that they revered the Genesaur as gods. Draenor was then divided into territories, and the Breakers and the Primals would fight with each other for ages to come. This era was known as the Age of Colossals. Ogres believed they were the first ones created by the Forgers, what they called the Titans, and were shaped from the burning slag as the Titans squeezed the light from the ball of fire that was Draenor. This, as we've stated, is not true. The wind serpent Seth on Draenor had a connection with the Void. He eventually fell due to the noble sacrifice of the raven Anzu, who had consumed Seth's shadow powers. The great being of light, Rukmar, created the Arakoa in Anzu's image as a tribute to his noble sacrifice. She led them to her homeland, Eric, but as they arrived, Rukmar died and she burned away. The Arakoa viewed this as a sign of ascendancy and vowed to create a great civilization in her honor. They created a huge, gilded city, and using their mastery of the light, called themselves the Apexis. Investigating Sethakalo, they also discovered the mysteries of shadow magic and were able to combine the arcane with the void. The Arakoa embraced both the light and the void, believing both to be natural parts of life, and two factions were formed. The Anhar, who studied holy magic, and the Skalax, who studied shadow and arcane magic. The Arakoa studied the land and came to the conclusion that the Primals and the Breakers were offspring of primordial giants. They kept the collective knowledge of their civilization in crystals called the Apexis Crystals. By touching one of these crystals, a being would consume all of the knowledge contained, even the experiences and memories of the one who crafted it. The Arakoa also deemed those who walked the surface as unclean and created mechanical constructs to walk the surface, gathering materials and do their bidding on the surface of Draenor. Some Anhari priests attempted to resurrect Rukmar from her charred bones. This was only a partial success. The new Rukmar was only a sliver of her former power and glory. Nonetheless, the Arakoa worshipped her as their goddess reborn. The rivalry between the Anhar and the Skalax became more and more hostile as they vied for the support of the populace. The Anhari began hoarding knowledge and started gathering Apexis crystals in secret over the course of many years, storing them in their Sun Temple. The Skalaxi believed that knowledge was a basic right of all Arakoa and demanded the release of the crystals. The leader of the Anhari, Belthric, declared the Anhari the sole rulers of Eric. The leader of the Skalax, Salavas, gathered his followers and struck at the Sun Temple to take the Apexis crystals by force. The battle raged in all of Eric for many months. In an effort to turn the tide, the Anhari released the breath of Rukmar. It worked, but the explosion that the weapon provided killed many Arakoa and destroyed the land. In time, this barren land would become known as the Spires of Eric, and it would take generations for life to bloom again. The Age of Order was over. A remnant of the Skalaxi, led by Yanzi, taught ogres how to use shadow and arcane magic, allowing them to rebel against their Ogron slave masters, and led to the creation of the ogre Gorian Empire. The Skalaxi did this to obtain the Apexis crystals below the city of Goria, but the ogre they taught, Gorgog the Grond Slayer, instead killed Yanzi. Ogres began seeking out Apexis crystals, seeing them as an incomparable prize. The ogres ruled for 600 years, until Imperator Moloch attempted to claim the throne of the elements and the elements themselves. This ignited a war between the ogres and the orcs. As the orcs came to the defense of the elements, the orcs laid siege to Goria, surrounding it and attempting to starve out their enemies. Gorian ogres believed they could outlast the siege, relying on their ocean ports. However, these ports could supply the city less and less as the orcs severed more and more land-based trade routes to the other ogre ports that they relied on. The ogres scoured the Apexis crystals that they had gathered and discovered an affliction the Arakoa had suffered, called the Curse of Seth. The ogres used this knowledge to develop a similar curse, succeeded and created the Red Pox. This illness spread like wildfire through orc encampments, killing many, many orcs. Knowing the battle was lost, the shaman, Nelgarm, asked the elements to attack this ogre city, and knowing that the ogres would attack the elements again, the elements agreed. A huge storm formed, the ground trembled, lightning and fire attacked the city, destroying everything and purposely sealing off escape routes. The earth wrenched open and swallowed the entire city whole. No ogres in the city were left alive by the elements. All of the orc clans returned to their own lands, as there was no longer a reason for a united orc army. Around 200 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, the Draenor crash-landed on Draenor on their ship, the Genadar. They planned on using Draenor as a refuge in their flight from the Burning Legion. They were the ones that named the planet Draenor, or Exile's Refuge in their tongue. The orcs would also eventually adopt this word to describe the planet. The Draenor built Shattrath City, where Goria once stood, and the Talbuks, who they brought from their homeworld, Argus, integrated with the local ecosystem. One of the Naanu, who was aboard the Genadar, Kara, was injured and flung into the skies above Draenor. It had entered a darkened state, becoming a dark Naanu. Kara's presence was felt by the orcs under where she was, in Shadowmoon Valley. Some were even able to harness the dark energies that she produced, allowing them to summon void creatures and raise the dead. Horrified, the then chieftain of the Shadowmoon clan banned the use of shadow magic. Another Naanu, Kure, in the crashed ship the Genadar, began to darken. Spirits of dead orcs and Draenor were attracted to this darkened Naanu. This became a holy site for the orcs, where they could commune with their dead. The orcs named the site Oshugun. At one point, Belen attempted to tell Duratan that they were actually worshipping a being, a Naanu, who attracted the souls of the dead. The shaman Drekthar was outraged, and the orcs were purely insulted by the idea. The Pale Orcs, who lived in the tunnels below Kure, had learned to wield void magics. The Pale Orcs were eventually absorbed into the Orcish horde as a member of the Twilight's Hammer clan, led by the ogre Cho'Gall. The orcs lived in a clan-based shamanistic society, living in harmony with the natural world. They clashed with the ogre clans and occasionally the primals. However, the Shadowmoon clan's chieftain, Ner'zhul, was tricked into forming an alliance with the Burning Legion. When he realized what happened, he attempted to back out of the deal, but his apprentice, Gul'dan, succeeded him, tempted by the lure of unlimited power. Gul'dan turned the orcs into a unified, bloodthirsty horde. He led them to drink the blood of the Pit Lord Manaroth, and they became bound to the will of the Burning Legion. Under the orders of Manaroth's master, Kil'jaeden, they destroyed the Draenor, enslaved the ogres, and conquered Draenor. Belen, the leader of the Draenor, survived the genocide and fled to the swamps, still in hiding from the Burning Legion. Before the orcs could destroy themselves in their bloodlust, Gul'dan worked with the Sargeras-possessed human Medivh and opened the Dark Portal, connecting Draenor to the world of Azeroth. The orcs spilled through the portal and started the First War, paving the way for the Burning Legion's invasion. The Orcish horde was eventually defeated by the Alliance of Lordaeron, and they counterattacked, attempting to follow the remaining orcs through the Dark Portal into Draenor to crush them so that they could never attack another world again. The Elder Shaman, Ner'zhul, tried to provide his fellow orcs a means of escape and opened dimensional rifts to other worlds. His reckless use of magic backfired, and the presence of these portals began to tear at the very fabric of the planet. In an attempt to save Azeroth from Draenor being ripped apart, the Alliance expedition closed the Dark Portal from the Draenor side, trapping them there. The remnants of the world was hurled toward the twisting nether, and it became known as Outland. Many orcs managed to weather the storm of Outland's destruction, and others even remained in Azeroth during the Alliance counterattack. The orcs managed to eke out an existence on both worlds, though in comparatively dwindling populations. Many Draenor survived, but many were mutated. The Alliance on Draenor also managed to eke out an existence, forming Honorhold. Turalyon and Illyria were saved by the Prime Naru Zera and recruited into the Army of Light to fight the Burning Legion. Though the world was shattered, arcane energies kept the world intact. A Pit Lord named Mangtheridin rallied the surviving orcs, and summoned more demons through Nerzul's dimensional gates, naming himself the Lord of Outland. Illidan and his forces had fled persecution on Azeroth with a goal to defeat the Burning Legion, attacked Magtheridon's citadel. Illidan killed Magtheridon and absorbed his demons into his ranks. Demon Lord Kha'Zix reopened the Dark Portal in order to flood Azeroth with ravenous demons of the Burning Legion. The Alliance and the Horde fought through the portal in order to stop the invasion at its source. While they fought the Legion, they were led into a conflict with their old enemy, Illidan Stormrage, who they defeated. An alternate timeline of Draenor was also created when a rogue bronze dragon, Kara's Dormu, saves Garrosh, and they go to an alternate timeline Draenor to create a new horde. When they arrived, Garrosh killed Karaz and binded the Orc clans into a single force called the Iron Horde. The Iron Horde was equipped with advanced goblin technology from main universe Azeroth and denied the corruption of Gul'dan and the Burning Legion. They opened the Dark Portal for the first time in their universe and attacked modern-day Azeroth. The forces of Azeroth ended up invading this alternate timeline Draenor and defeated the Iron Horde. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the history of Draenor in World of Warcraft lore. If you did, please check me out on other platforms. Please like and subscribe. Check me out on Twitter, check me out on Instagram, check me out on Discord. We have a good community there, and especially Twitch. I'm growing. I would love for you to join us there. We have a lot of fun. Why don't you treat yourself today? Take a nap. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.